Excuse me? You can't block a mandatory HOA inspection. I demand entry, screeched Gloria Affinity, the president of our homeowners association and a full-time violator of personal boundaries. She was throwing a tantrum at the foot of my gravel driveway, flanked by two uneasy HOA volunteers, when my wife, Sarah, calmly lifted her badge. Actually, Sarah said, sliding a thin manila folder from under her arm, you can't trespass on federal property. If you want a conversation, you'll need a warrant. She flipped the folder open, Gloria's face drained of color. Right there, staring back at her in black and white, was her own name at the top of a freshly unsealed federal warrant. My name's Elliot Grange. I'm a quiet engineer who survives on cold brew coffee and Norwegian crime novels. My happy place is the cabin I built myself, a cozy retreat tucked deep into the forested edges of Foxglove Summit, a rustic community ruled by an overzealous HOA. I kept to myself, paid dues on time, even installed a composting toilet without ceremony. But that piece attracted exactly the wrong kind of attention. Gloria Affinity, the HOA president, self-styled heir to Nurse Ratched, and the kind of woman who once fined a neighbor for aggressively emotional wind chimes, had developed a new fixation: cabin inspections. Mine was next on her clipboard. She called it part of the quarterly rustic compliance initiative. I declined. She cited bylaws. I asked her to leave. Gloria responded by skulking around with binoculars and a digital thermometer, claiming it was for safety. Then came the barrage of emails. We're concerned about mold. Several residents reported smoke. Do you keep bees? What Gloria didn't know was that Sarah, my wife, wasn't just the quiet, sourdough-baking, succulent-keeping woman she appeared to be. She worked for the U.S. Marshals Service, and she had no patience for wannabe authoritarians waving fake codes like magic wands. The first real clash came on a Tuesday morning. Gloria marched up my driveway holding what looked like a property assessment form and the swagger of someone who'd never been told no. Elliot, we need to discuss your cabin's compliance status. I was sipping coffee on the porch, watching two cardinals bicker over bird seed, grateful for rural serenity. What compliance status? She flashed a laminated card that looked suspiciously homemade. I'm authorized under Section 12-4 of the Community Guidelines to conduct structural assessments. I'd read those guidelines cover to cover before buying my property. Section 12-4 is about pool maintenance, Gloria. Chlorine levels, she huffed like I just insulted her grandmother. Well, it's been updated. The audacity was almost impressive. 2 days later, she returned with reinforcements. Dennis, a jittery man who apologized every other breath, and a clipboard-toting woman who radiated I'd rather be anywhere else. Elliot, we've received multiple complaints about your cabin. I was tightening a loose board on my deck. Routine maintenance, though in Gloria's world, apparently suspicious. What complaints? Dennis cleared his throat. Reports of unusual sounds. Unusual sounds? Gloria leapt in, hammering at odd hours. Loud music. Possible illegal construction. The hammering was me fixing the very deck they were standing on. The loud music was Norwegian folk at a perfectly reasonable volume. The illegal construction was a bird feeder I'd hung last month. But Gloria was only getting started. She pulled out her phone and began snapping pictures of my cabin like she was building a case file. Is this structure even permitted? Yes, Gloria. I showed you the permits last year. She ignored me, kept taking photos. What about the composting toilet? Are you certain it meets county standards? It had been installed by a licensed contractor and passed 3 separate inspections. It's in the file, Gloria. She jotted something on her clipboard. We'll need to verify that. The clipboard woman muttered something to Dennis, who nodded nervously. I was beginning to understand why the previous HOA president had fled to Florida. Things escalated when Gloria expanded her investigation to my neighbors. Mrs. Patterson across the trail later told me Gloria had knocked on her door, asking about strange smells and possible fire hazards. The strange smells were my morning coffee, or maybe the occasional grilled cheese sandwich. The fire hazards were presumably my fireplace, which I used exactly as intended for warmth and ambiance. Then came the night visit. I was reading in my living room when I heard footsteps on my porch. Through the curtain gap, I spotted Gloria with a flashlight peering in. When I opened the door, she jumped like I'd caught her red-handed. "Oh, Elliot, I was just checking for carbon monoxide leaks." She held a gadget that looked suspiciously like a TV remote. "Gloria, it's 9:30 at night." She stiffened her spine. "Emergency inspections can happen anytime under the new safety protocols." "What protocols?" She waved her fake device like a talisman. "The ones approved at the last emergency board meeting." There hadn't been an emergency meeting. I knew, because I actually read the minutes. The breaking point came when Gloria enlisted her adult son, Trevor, in what she called enhanced surveillance. Trevor, who clearly wished he were gaming instead, parked himself in a folding chair at the edge of my property with binoculars. When I asked what he was doing, he mumbled, "Mom says I need to watch for code violations." "Trevor, what code violations?" He produced a laminated list: unauthorized modifications, improper waste disposal, and after squinting, excessive bird attraction. I had one bird feeder. Apparently that counted. The following week, Gloria arrived again, clipboard in one hand, bolt cutters in the other. This time she brought Dennis, the clipboard woman, and two strangers, forming a little invasion force. "Elliot, we need immediate access to conduct a mandatory safety inspection." Sarah stepped forward in her work clothes from the marshal's office. "Ma'am, do you have a warrant?" Gloria barked a bitter laugh. "This is my jurisdiction. I don't need a warrant." That's when Sarah disappeared inside and returned holding a file she'd been saving for weeks. You see, Sarah doesn't just work for the U.S. Marshals Service. She's good at her job. Really good. When someone like Gloria starts waving around fake authority and making everyone miserable, Sarah pays attention. In fact, months earlier, out of sheer curiosity, she had already run Gloria's name through the system. What turned up was eye-opening. 3 years ago, Gloria had used her HOA title to push through a fake business license in a nearby county. She'd actually posed as a government official to bypass the licensing process. Sarah had forwarded the file to a federal task force that investigates identity fraud, and just this week the case came back with an active warrant for impersonating a government official. The federal government doesn't joke about that sort of thing. Pretending to hold authority to sidestep legal procedures isn't just unethical. It's a felony. Gloria had done it in writing, complete with her own fake signatures and letterhead. Sarah had everything: the fraudulent forms, the bogus seal, even the email exchanges where Gloria flat out claimed she was a county licensing officer. It was the kind of airtight evidence prosecutors love. The change in Gloria was instant and dramatic. One moment, she was the swaggering HOA tyrant. 3 seconds later, she was a trembling suburban mom. It's not like that. I was helping the community," she stammered, her voice cracking. Sarah stayed calm and professional as her training demanded. "Ma'am, you represented yourself as a county official to approve a contractor's license. That's a federal crime." Her two volunteers immediately edged backward, as if she'd confessed to carrying the plague. Dennis looked ready to be sick. "I was just trying to help Bob get his landscaping business started," Gloria pleaded. Sarah coolly pulled out her phone. "And you falsified government documents to do it." The bolt cutters Gloria had been clutching dropped with a metallic clang that echoed through the trees. Still, Gloria wasn't ready to quit. She shifted tactics, accusing Sarah. "This is harassment. You're abusing your position to intimidate a volunteer." Sarah only smiled. "Ma'am, I'm off duty. This is a citizen's arrest based on an active federal warrant." She showed Gloria the paperwork. "You have the right to remain silent." Gloria's face cycled through colors, red, white, then a sickly green. "You can't arrest me, I'm the HOA president," she wailed. Sarah, already calling for backup, replied, "That's not a real position of authority, ma'am. And even if it were, federal law outranks HOA bylaws." The next 20 minutes were surreal. Gloria alternated between demanding Sarah's supervisor and insisting it was all a misunderstanding. "I never said I was a county official," she claimed. Sarah pulled up an email. "Here, you signed as Gloria Finity County Licensing Coordinator. That's not a real title, and you don't work for the county." Gloria pivoted again. "I was just helping streamline the process." Sarah shook her head. You created fake credentials and charged someone $300 to process an application you had no authority to handle. Gloria froze. $300? It turned out Gloria had been running a side hustle, using her HOA title to trick people into believing she had government authority. When the sheriff finally arrived, she made one last desperate accusation. "This is about my cabin inspections." "She's retaliating because I found violations." Deputy Collins, a patient man, skimmed the warrant and said evenly, "Ma'am, this is for events 3 years ago. It has nothing to do with cabin inspections." Gloria's mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish. But, by then Collins already had the cuffs out. "Ma'am, you need to come with me." That's when she snapped. "This is unconstitutional. I demand a lawyer. I demand the real authorities." Sarah, who literally was the real authority, simply stood by as Gloria was escorted to the patrol car. Gloria flailed, denied everything, blamed deep fakes. But Sarah had body cam footage, time-stamped photos, and even a statement from a former HOA treasurer, now running a dog-walking service called Snitch and Fetch, and just like that it was over. Gloria was cuffed at the bottom of my driveway, screaming about constitutional overreach and deep state compost toilets, while I sipped coffee from my porch, watching 3 years of petty tyranny meet its long overdue reckoning. At the next HOA meeting, live-streamed, by popular demand, I gave a 3-minute presentation titled Boundaries Warrants and Why You Leave Married Men's Cabins Alone. Sarah sat beside me, calmly knitting a scarf that read, BYOB, Bring Your Own Badge. Gloria resigned on the spot, tears streaming. The new HOA president established one simple rule. If there's no smoke, bees, or bodies, leave it be. The meeting ended with actual applause. Gloria eventually pled down to community service and 2 years probation. Ironically, she was assigned a clear trail brush behind my cabin. Sometimes Sarah would wave from the porch as Gloria picked up litter within sight of our composting toilet, the very one she'd obsessed over for years. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The first day, Gloria turned so red at the sight of Sarah that I half expected her to faint. "This is humiliating," she muttered to her supervisor. Sarah just smiled and went back to her knitting.